Welcome to Inside the Headset with New Palestine High School head football coach Kyle Ralph, special teams coordinator Wes Anderson. Coach, we're working our way through the 2015 state championship game, Class 5A title game, your first playoff venture in 5A against Fort Wayne Snider. And did you have a chance to sit down and watch some cartoons yesterday and kind of turn your mood around after we watched that first quarter?
It took a while. Unfortunately, yesterday's weather was terrible as well, so I couldn't go outside and kind of get my mood sparked up by good weather here. A high of like 43 here. So, yeah, I just turned on some Mickey Mouse cartoons with my kids and got the mood turned around in a hurry.
So we're going to cover the second quarter today, and as we head to the second quarter here, offense is driving. Down 21-0, and we talked briefly about this yesterday, but I guess my question is here I asked you yesterday kind of if you felt like the game was out of reach yet, and your answer was sort of a little bit yes, a little bit no. And my question is, as we work through this first drive of the second quarter here, is did you feel like you absolutely 100% had to have points right here?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, this drive had to end in, you want to say at least 3, but truthfully, this drive had to end in 7. Again, there was no sign whatsoever that we could stop them at this point. And we've been on the other side of this coin before. I know I've referenced Columbus East of 2013, where the train just came off the tracks for us, and they just, I'm not even sure if we forced them to punt until late in the game when their backups had come in, and so we've been on the opposite side of those before, where, man, you can't get it going, and it's not ever going to get going, and you're just in for a long night, and sometimes there ain't a whole lot you can do about it. Normally that's what we've done to people. And so mentality wise, it is difficult because I know what's coming. If we can't get something going here on this drive, I know what's coming. And the harder part, like I said yesterday, was this team, this 15 group that we had, they were incredibly experienced, and they had done the same thing to so many teams in the past. They know what's coming. If we can't score here and this game becomes 28-0, which it would have. I mean, it was gonna. They know exactly what that means. I mean, that means that you're buried and that we got to start pressing. And when we have to start pressing, you're going to make more mistakes. And when you make more mistakes, then more bad things happen. So this was big to at least keep us inside of 2 scores, which is manageable. I mean, truthfully, to fast forward, though, it's going to get worse. We're going to get an even larger gap here as this quarter goes on. So, quite frankly, it isn't like this gets a lot better. It actually gets a lot worse. And the difference in between those 2 things, though, is we do at least score some points in battle. But yeah, I mean, otherwise this game, it gets completely out of hand. I mean, points are at a premium here, but scoring on this drive allows us to at least stay in a calm zone where you don't have to start pressing and trying to make points up off of, God knows what, things on your practice plan and your play calls that you really don't want to have to get into. So it is important that we get one here.
Let's get going. So like I said, 21-0. And we start the second quarter here on 3rd and about 6. And just the old run-of-the-mill inside zone here.
Yeah, we get a good carry on this one. We decided to go with some motion here on this one just to see what it's going to do to them. And They really just exchanged responsibilities. Nothing major. Kind of what we thought would happen. You can see that the safety at the bottom of the screen by the number 4 there. Essentially, they're just going to switch responsibilities. The guy covering him in loose man on the hash up top is essentially just going to pass him along. What we figured out in the first quarter, though, is something that you referenced yesterday. We had figured out that a lot of their gap exchanges and stuff like that with that linebacker, the linebacker that's wide down there by the hash, the bottom of the screen, he pretty much is in charge of the quarterback at all times. And we're gonna pick on that here a little bit later on and start kind of, well, we're actually going to throw an RPO off of that here essentially and make sure that kid can't be right. So what you see on this one now is after we talked about it some, we have a specific call here where the tackle's actually going to lock onto that player on the defensive end. And then we're going to throw the ball. This was kind of one of the beauties of Alex being so talented and understanding what we can accomplish. We could do these things. And I know I haven't really talked about this much on this series, but I talk about it in my clinics and stuff. One of the really hard parts, and this year was the first year we started to really see this happen to us, to our offense, and it makes sense. Our 14 offense was really good. We'd broken in 2014, we broke the Indiana State record for points in a season. And then this group actually turns around in 15 and breaks it again, and we do it in one less game. So it was really incredible what this offense did. We also broke the Indiana State yardage record in 14 games, and we broke it by a lot. Like, we broke it by over 1,000 yards, I think, and we did it in a game less than the other team had done it. I mean, it was unbelievable what this offense could really do when it was clicking. So, one of the beauties of that, like I said, was – Alex was a really smart player, and the thing I haven't talked about in the series is we faced so many teams that would come out, and we get this now as well a lot. About 75 to 80% of the time we get this. So many teams came out and didn't do what they had planned to do or shown on film. They would completely overhaul the defense for the game and change it to try to catch us off guard and potentially slow us down. And the great part about having someone that was as smart and as talented as Alex is it took us a little bit of time to usually figure out what other teams were trying to do, because we just had to get information, from essentially running plays. And then once we did, we could make some change on the sideline. So it just kind of had to be that way. And it's a great job by our staff and a great job by our kids of being able to adjust. And like I said, we had a great season. We broke two major offensive records in the state of Indiana in one season this year, which is incredible. So this is kind of an adjustment that we make. It's going to pay off for us a little bit later on, but we got to see it a few times, obviously, right now, to kind of see what it's going to look like, and then we'll come back here later and we'll throw the ball off of this. But that's kind of what's happening right here, and it's going to set us up for something big later on. So we're gonna change our scheme some, because that linebacker is not going to be as aggressive, because he's essentially in charge of Alex, and if Alex pulls the ball, he'll step up. So we're going to try to come after that a little bit here. Again, we really don't block in the middle. These two big guys inside are just going to be a nightmare, and we let a backer go right across our face here. So this is another really good play for us here, and I'll talk about this as well. I know I mentioned this yesterday, but this was one of the things when they played their cover 4, which is what this essentially is. So if you've I didn't really say this yesterday. If you've had a keen eye to this, though, you've probably been able to tell already what coverage you're going to get. And that was something that was really easy for our kids to be able to do. if you've paid attention, they really only run 2 coverages. So if you go back to the start of this play, actually, if you go back, yeah, this is fine. Go ahead and go back to the play that it was. So if you look at this play here, this is essentially going to be their cover 4. Okay, when they walked out and the guy up top essentially becomes the point man up on the hash. There are then going to be, he's the flat player. If those of you that have watched this series, it will look similar to what Center Grove has done. It will look similar to what Columbus East has done. That guy is what we call the rover, and usually he'll play to the field, or he will play to your best receiver, and he'll be the point man to help jam, reroute, and then he'll cover the flat. The other 4 guys then essentially lined up in really what was a straight line across the board in the back, which that was kind of our signal that they're playing cover 4. When they wanted to play man-to-man, though, they would play the outside guy up tight, and then the other guys would back up and stay away, and they would be at varying levels. So it wasn't very hard to see. They are playing a lot of cover 4 to our 2x2. And this is, I think, a really important part of play calling here. We knew we could get them to make some mistakes in their cover 4 because they had been so undisciplined in it. Man-to-man's pretty cut and dry. I mean, you cover your guy. It's not that hard. Not often do teams make mistakes in man-to-man. They do, but not very often. So if you watch the bottom of the screen here, these are the things as a coordinator you've got to see and pay attention to. And I catch this one. We run our in concept here from 2x2, and Duke essentially is going to run when Logan flashes in front of this guy's face here. For some reason, he triggers to attack this dig, and he shouldn't. And Duke runs right by this guy. I mean, it's a little bit late. The dig's coming open, but you see what he stutters for the dig, and Duke runs right past him. And I catch this. I see that whole thing happen. So I put that in the memory bank, and you just kind of reference like manufacturing points now. We've really got 2 things from the first quarter information here that we can use as positives. This is one that we can score off of. This is one that can get us 6 points again, because normally when you see kids do stuff like this, again, as a coordinator, as part of your job is to see and catch these things. They've been trained some way, somehow to trigger on this throw. And some of that is from game tape. Some of it's from how they play their system. Whatever it is, though, they usually consistently do that. It isn't like this habit is going to change all of a sudden. If you get them on something like this once, it's usually going to be there again a second time. Maybe not a third, but you can get them probably one more time on it. So this is valuable information that we get from this play that's going to pay off for us again later here. But again, if you're not paying attention, and this is probably a big conversation of, like, I mentioned this yesterday, it isn't about the X's and O's. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about being attentive, being astute, into the plan, simplicity, knowing what certain things open up for you. It's not about having 10,000 different things out there and beating teams with volume. It's here's the plays that we've got. This is what we're going to run, and then we're going to see how they have adjusted to these plays, and then we're going to have some simple things off of those plays to take advantage of that. And I again, it's just my opinion. To me, that's the better way to do stuff. Simplicity is usually what wins, and then when they overcompensate for what you're doing well, you can open other things up. So we'll get one here in a minute off of that. come back with another motion here. It worked well for us just because it makes them communicate. So we're going to motion. This would be another man-to-man scenario, by the way, when you look at this one compared to the last one. This is what I'm talking about. When the corner's up there really close and the other two guys are super far back on the top of the screen, this is now man-to-man. It wasn't hard to figure out what they were doing. You can see the difference here. There are four guys on all different levels, and then the guy at the bottom of the screen that's, a couple yards outside of the zero, that's the other safety. He's now up there in the event that Alex pulls the ball. He's there to help with this too. So when we motion like this, they just weren't moving, and it made them communicate. And the guy that's supposed to cover Duke stays 10 yards away, and the guy that's supposed to then cover Duke doesn't move either. I mean, it didn't go anywhere. So they're not handling that well, and it's getting us to keep another player out of the box, and we're able to run the ball better with that last motion, so we just come back to it again and do it. And get another pretty good run, really.
Quarterback counter.
Yeah. Not
I'm gonna
much.
tell you, these dudes are really good.
Yeah, not
the
much
more,
here.
the more I watch this and just their kids are obviously, I mean, supremely talented. We've talked about that, but they're really well coached in here. They do a really good job. Good job with their hands. Good job defeating blocks. I mean, they're really good.
Yeah, we're too deep on our pull, and we get wrong armed. It's pretty much a recipe
Mm-hmm.
disaster on that one. So this is our outside zone quarterback lead here, and if you remember back in the first quarter, we had a really good-looking one going, and we flat out didn't block the front side linebacker for whatever reason. We don't even go to him. This time we get it all covered up, and when you're going to play man-to-man, this is the deal here. We run this one away from the extra player. So the extra player for them is the guy on the 2 right now. So if we run over there, well, I mean, we still can block him, but it's just not necessary. So we run this to where the soft spot on the defense is, which is that little bubble that's created behind that tackle, that defensive tackle and defensive end. And Nick then becomes an extra player in the event that we screw up again. Nick would lead block, and he would pick up the guy the lineman miss. And Alex is essentially 1-on-0, really, if we get a hat on a hat here. The offensive line on this play, though, does a good job. We get them all picked up, and Nick ends up just being an extra player, really, with Alex behind him. So Nick steals a guy off, and Alex does the rest. It's a huge run.
65, is that Yazel?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you what, he's battling in here. You talked a little bit about the kind of, this kid as a player is really, really supremely talented, and I mean, Yazel's just a tough kid, and I mean, he kind of gets stunned here a little bit, but does a really good job fighting, kind of rips through this a little bit, and
it's just an effort. It's an
just
effort
battles.
Yeah, that's just a great effort play. That was the one thing too, and this game is really going to become a signature game for us for this reason. But I mean, as poorly as we executed, the one thing about this game and about this team is the effort of these guys. This 2015 group, the effort of them, especially in this game, is man, it was off the charts. And they're tough kids. They're just fighters. They were ultra competitive kids, and yeah. So this is now our first touchdown. This is gonna be a problem all night. Our right side on PAT is gonna have a bad night, and it's gonna cost us big. Late in this game, they really just abuse our right side here, and we're going to get one blocked later that really, really hurts. This is probably, in all honesty, too, at one of the worst times you could ever have it. This is probably the worst special teams game that we have played in my time here. It really was just a compounding set of issues. And that's our fault as coaches. We just weren't, we just, it just wasn't tight.
I'll say this
It wasn't
too.
tight enough.
I'll say this too, and not to, hindsight's. I've said this several times during the series, and my dad used to say hindsight's 50-50. But you got a freshman tight end right here, Luke Ely.
Yeah.
And right next to him, you've got a freshman right tackle in Austin Keel, who both become really good players for us down the road. They're both all-state selections. Luke Ely could have played really, really high level, not Division I football, but could have been a really good college football player as well, if not for his injury and him decided to hang it up. But state championship game, really good team, and you're rolling out there with two freshmen shoulder to shoulder would give me some concern, if I'm putting it bluntly. And that's, if I remember right, that's what kills us here down the stretch.
Yeah, the tight end wing combination is what really hurts us. But they come after our right side hard the entire night, and they're going to eventually get one because of a mistake by us. So, that's what we had though. We lost a senior offensive tackle in week 2 for the year, and Austin was number 6 as a freshman. He was the next best player. I mean, that's what we had. And Luke won the starting job at linebacker as a freshman.
Do a good job rallying to that.
So this is the first kickoff you've seen from us, by the way, and here was you would have really loved to prep for this game. So here was the problem with this. If you pause, their returner was Hippenhammer. So they essentially made you kick it to him, right? Like he stood back there pretty much by himself. I think he's one that gets knocked off of this ball. He kind of gets mad at his teammate here, but the kickoff return guy solo back there is Hippenhammer, who had I think 2 or 3 special teams touchdowns on the season already, and is arguably the best athlete overall in the state of Indiana. I mean, again, he's about to go play 2 Division I sports on scholarship at a major Big Ten university, right? I mean, he's elite level. And in front of him then are all of the running backs and the other receivers. So if you want to not kick it to him, which really is unless you can do what Spencer can do, which is kind of directional kick this. And also what I would like you to do is keep this kick in your mind here. This kick that's down to about the 10 or 15 yard line, store that in your memory bank. But if you can do this and you can kick it mildly deep and outside the numbers, which Spencer was good enough to do, you're still going to kick it to a college scholarship athlete. It's not Hippenhammer, Now he's going to run up and try to catch a bunch of these, but we did not want the ball into his hands under any circumstance. I mean, look at the open field there. Look how much turf that kid would have to run in. And so now it's, what is the lesser of all the evils? Do we kick it to him deep? Do we kick it short and left to a college level receiver? Do we kick it short and right to a college level running back? Do we kick it shorter and left to another college scholarship receiver? Or do we kick it shorter and right to another college running back? What's your pick? This team, our special teams in general, but this team was one of my biggest concerns, especially now at this moment, because I'm thinking like we just scored. And again, this is probably a bit of foreshadowing here, but honestly, I had almost mentally prepared for them to return a kickoff on us. I just wasn't sure. We just didn't have the athletes to contain their athletes in space like that. It just wasn't going to happen. They've got 5 college scholarship level players out there on kickoff return, and in front of them, like you said earlier, but it's all their other linebackers and tight ends. It's not a bunch of like Joe Schmoes out there. It's a bunch of other, 5'11" to 6'3", 180 to 210-pound kids that are just really good high school football players. So not fun. Good job by us up front here. I mean, honestly, look at the timing of this throw. I mean, this is a sprint out. Okay. He hasn't even broken, and he's triggering the ball. It's just, they were so, and he's about to get hit too, and he knows he's about to get hit. I mean, look at that. Unbelievable. They were so good at this stuff. I mean, it really is. There are a few teams we've played where they were this sharp with these type things. I mean, their passing game was absolutely just airtight, and they had to look at that route too. That is an unbelievable bench route on this sprint out, and it's a one-man deal. This ball's only going to one kid. There's no one else that's touching the football on this play. The good part is this was something they'd done a lot. We get some information. We almost pick 6-1 later, but we don't. Same thing.
Here.
Look how far we make him bounce this, and there's just nothing we can do about it. He just outruns us to the sideline. Against most teams we've played, look how – that is such a – we're getting held like crazy, by the way. That was probably one thing about this game that I was most frustrated with during it, and I think even more frustrated after it. Like I said, I haven't watched this game in full, but it doesn't want to sound like it's an excuse, but I'm going to tell you what, the amount of holding that went on that was uncalled, it is egregious in this game. Here's another absolute strike, by the way.
Same thing. I mean, look at when he's pulling the trigger on this.
Yeah, that guy's not even remotely close to open. Everything they did was about timing. And that is an absolute laser. That's the thing. If you can get in that window, because that's Luke or Crumlin there, they don't even pay attention to the underneath guys. It wasn't even a concern. Like, you just can't get your linebacker in the window before he knows that route's going to be there. They were so exceptionally well timed with that stuff. I mean, we're almost there. We almost get our hands on that, but he can get rid of it before you can make it a problem for him.
Penalty.
They had been heavily penalized all season too. That was another thing that we win the penalty.
There's counter right down the chute.
Yeah. Even worse on this is we know it's coming. If you look at how they line up, this is what they had done. You know it's coming. The side the ball goes to, they all scoot up real far. The side that's pulling, they scoot back so they can pull. We know it's coming. We just go way too far up the field at linebacker here, and we don't read the pulls at all, which was really just a cardinal sin. I really don't know what was going on with us defensively. I mean, we just weren't prepared. We knew the play. I mean, we knew. I mean, it's in the scouting report. We knew what was coming. It wasn't hard to see. There's two guys really far back, and there's four guys that are really far up. It's going to be counter Trey, and boy, do we ever not stop that one. Those of you that, by the way, are coordinators or planners, and those are the things that we look for a tremendous amount, by the way, those little tips and tidbits. And, well, we had that one zeroed in, and, yeah, we just don't – I mean, we just don't get it done. Now they're back in the pro.
Here's another new look as we get down to the 3-yard line. Here's just traditional.
Yep, here's just roll
21
pro.
personnel I.
Yep. And they're going to pretty much run their powers.
Two-back power.
This one's going to be power.
That looked like ISO. Didn't have the beginning of it, but regardless, it's 7 points. So 28-7.
Yep. Feels like an infomercial right now, but wait, there's more.
How much is it, and where can I get one? Yeah, there's a 3-stepper to the 8-yard line right on the number. Sure. Okay. All right. Just a couple blocks there. You know, we talked about this. It's just is not a favorable matchup here with all these dudes over here wearing 40s and 90s. It's just not. Listen, you're just not going to block them. I mean, let's be honest.
No. I mean, we're pretty much playing with a hands team out there as well.
Yep. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, you're asking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You know, you're asking some of these tiny guys.
And that's Duke and all those guys. Logan's out there, and then Crumlin's out there. God, Brett might be out there as a sophomore. I mean, we're.
Yeah. There's Brett right there. I mean, you're asking Brett Luker, who even as a senior was pretty thin.
Yeah.
You know, as a sophomore at the time, and he's got a block at 215-pound line. It's just not gonna happen, you know. And I think that's one of the keys to this inside the headset stuff. You know, is this happens and you get tackled at the 21-yard line, and there's 8 people behind us who are screaming in the stand, screaming, "We'll block somebody." Well, like, what do you want us to do? Like,
yeah, I'd love 143-pound sophomore Brett Luker to come up and square up their 205-pound linebacker, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you got your freshman linebacker here. Here's Brett. Here's Duke. It's Jordan Shanahan. It looks like.
Yeah, Crumlin's in there. Yeah,
Crumlin's in there. I mean, listen, guys, we got to put guys out there to catch the ball if they kick it short on us.
That actually is Jordan. That is Jordan as a sophomore, I think. Yeah.
I mean, you know, listen, that's the deal on kick return. You know, if they're going to kick it short, you got to put guys out there that can catch, or you're going to lose football. So the scream and block somebody thing, and a little bit easier said than done. Sprint out coming here. This will be our sticks concept. Talk about this in the Center Grove game.
Yeah, nice easy pitch and catch, especially what they've been playing to this trips look, which is this man-to-man stuff. The guy covering the number 3 receiver, he can't rally to this fast enough to ever cover it. So as we've kind of figured out now that we've actually gotten a bunch of plays in what they're doing, now you can start making some better play calls. So we're getting to that. We're getting to that. Another motion. Again. So this is the opposite now. So when you see this one happen, when we motion from 3x1 to 2x2, they really didn't do a whole lot. And it just looked like their communication was not good. There was a breakdown somewhere in there, and they were staying in what appeared to be at least their man-to-man. So now we go from 2x2 to 3x1, and admittedly, this is not something we normally would do because Duke becomes kind of the wing here, which obviously is not really what you would want to have. But the interesting thing about this is they're playing their cover 4 to 2x2 again, which has been pretty consistent with what they've been doing. But when we motion to 3x1 now, they actually check the other side to cover 4 is what it looks like, which is not what they've been doing on the other one. So they've got a couple – it would appear they've either got a couple of checks right now, or their check is to stay in the coverage that they've been assigned to play and just flip that to the opposite side of the ball where the guy is motioning to. So now they're going to actually have a lot more work and a lot more thinking to do here. In the big picture, this is going to really then come down to, how much do you want to do this? How much motioning do you want to do? Is there something in the motioning you can take advantage of? Is all that effort going to be worth it to make them potentially make mistakes and make them pay for one here? So normally, again, we've watched. I think this is like the 9th game that we've done. We really don't motion a ton, honestly. We're not a big motioning team, unless we feel like there's something that it gives us. Whether it's timing on inside or outside zone, whether it's speed to the perimeter on jet sweeps, whether it's trying to get that guy over there to run some kind of rub routes into a wheel and get him loose, whether it makes you go through a bunch of checks and possibly line up incorrectly. It really comes down to how much value is motioning going to give us. And as of right now, it looks like it's going to give us a lot of value. It just comes down to how are we going to essentially quantify that value? What is the positive it's going to give us? If we continually keep motioning right now, because they look like they've got a couple of things that they're prepared to do if and when we motion, but is it worth continuing to do that to find a play that we can expose them with is kind of where you have to function now as a coordinator, and like I said, motioning is not a big part of what we do. So the more motions I would call, the more unlike our offense that would be. And I've got to now process pretty quickly on the sidelines here again, what are their adjustments to these motions? And then do we have some simple things off of the plan that we can come back to and execute with? So,
one of the things I want to talk about.
You can't just do it to do it. You can't just do it to do it. There has to be a rhyme or reason to why I'm going to spend my guys' time and energy. Because I'll say this too, and I probably should just let off with this. A long time ago, and you and I talked about this before we got on today, but in a little different capacity. A long time ago when I was learning as a coach, I still am learning. So I you're always trying to learn and get better. But a long time ago when I was developing myself as a young coach and what I maybe wanted my offense to look like someday, because I wanted to be a coordinator, I wanted to be a head coach. I really had high aspirations. I remember I went to a clinic and I was sitting there watching a guy from college talk about up-tempo, no-huddle stuff, and ended up developing a really good relationship with him as time went on. And I remember one day he had come in to recruit our kids and stuff, and I just asked him. This was when I was back in Ohio. This is over 10 years ago. I said, hey, if you don't mind, I'm really into the up-tempo stuff. I really like it. I think it would be what I would want to do as a play caller, and I had played in and come from a lot of pro-style motions, shifting offenses. And I asked him, I said, how come you guys don't motion a lot? You guys pretty much just stand still. And I felt like motioning in an offense could be a huge advantage in up-tempo because they have to line up and they've got to make checks and all that stuff. And I said, how come you don't do that? You're just curious. It's not like I'm trying to offer you advice. I'm just asking a question because I think motioning is probably a positive for us in an offense I would like to run. And he said, look, we're up-tempo, no huddle. And the philosophy behind that is you're trying to snap the ball as fast as you possibly can, and that's where their mistakes come from. You're executing really simple things at a really high rate of speed, which makes their jobs harder inherently. They have to line up, they have to know their assignment, and they have to get clear communication from the sideline, clear communication among each other, and you're going to line up and run something very simple, very quickly. Okay. I said, yeah, I get that. And he said, so why would I want to waste time and give your players time to breathe and motion to the formation I want anyway? He said, I'm just going to line up in it and run the play. Why would I waste time and give you an opportunity to think and breathe by motioning to what I want instead of just line up in what I want and let's play the game? And that really had always stuck with me. So I'm not a big motion guy. We do it every once in a while because there are some things that helps out and there are some things you can do off of it. But that was a really impacting statement on me. And I really, that has become part of my general philosophy as well of why am I going to line up in formation X and then move my guys around to get into formation Y instead of just let's line up in formation Y and let's snap the ball. I know what I want. Let's go. Now, there are some things that we've done. We motion our wings a lot. And that's something that I do like. But, again, it's just something that I learned in the past. And for huddle guys out there that potentially watch this and stuff, that's just something that it really struck a chord with me. And it made a lot of sense. Again, not that it's right. Not that I'm right, not that he was right, not that any of that's right. That's just my philosophy, and that's what's built into our system and how we do things. So, yeah.
I'll kind of chime in on this too because I've mentioned this a couple of times. We've done this. Before I came and joined this staff, I was an offensive coordinator, and we were actually just talking yesterday as I was going through some stuff. I found a bunch of my old stuff from the system that I used to run. And one of the things that we did all the time was we motioned. We were motioning, trading, shifting. We'd motion twice in the same play. We were doing something every play. And, I think the problem that you create when you do that, if you do this and you don't know that the defense is going to do this, all you've done is screw your quarterback over.
Yeah.
Because now you've shown him a picture that he's never seen before. And, so I'm not going to just rip those guys emotional all the time because I used to be one of those guys. Now, I was wrong, and I can see that now because, if we do this and we've got a pass called, my quarterback's got 2 seconds to identify what this is, and if he's wrong, he's going to throw it right in some dude's face mask and the defense is coming out. So that's also not good. So my philosophy has kind of changed over the years. Partially because that's, what you believe and kind of your backstory on that makes sense. But, from where I came from, which was just sending dudes all over the yard and trying to create mismatches and all that stuff. And, I talk about it in my special teams philosophy a little bit. I don't have to be smarter than their coaches. I've got to be smarter than their kids. Well, that's kind of the same philosophy applies here in reverse. Defensive coordinator doesn't have to be smarter than you. He's got to be smarter than him. And if he is smarter than him and he forces him to make mistakes, well, that's real bad news for the offense, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So
the best part about all this too is there are 1,000 ways to attack the game of football and be successful. Like, for example, to go along that story, a good friend of mine, he's a new Palestinian and has been wildly successful coaching the game of football, is Matt Canada. And I talk to him a lot, especially in the off season, the preseason. I talk to him a ton and just kind of filter ideas through him. And he's been great. He is such an incredible resource, and he's now the quarterback coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he has just been unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable for me to have as a sounding board for some stuff. And I talked to him one off season about his offense, and well,
that dude motions all the time.
Yeah, his is shifts and motions and unbalanced and trades and multiple within one setting and all kinds of stuff. And his offense is exceptional. I mean, his offenses have been great everywhere he's been, and he's climbed that success ladder at the highest levels of college football, and now he's going to go coach in the NFL. I mean, it's, again, like I said, it's not to say that I'm right or my way's better. That's the thing I think that drives me nuts about some of this stuff is, and you know, I've talked about this a little bit, but some of these guys and stuff that get on the internet and they push their programs, and the thing is they act like their system is infallible and it's the right way to do things. Well, it's not. There is no right way to do things. There's lots of ways to do things, and there's lots of ways to do things successfully. There's no right way to do something, and nothing also is bulletproof. And that's a really important piece to all of this stuff. I know this has been a long talk on all that, but this whole series was made to be a recap of games and then a breakdown of the sport of football, essentially. It's really important to understand that there are lots and lots and lots of ways to go about being successful. And it's all about an identity that just isn't our identity, and it just isn't my philosophy. It's not to say that your way is wrong or anyone who watches this way is wrong. That's just how we do it. So all that being said, which was super long, let's go ahead and roll the film. So we go to our quarterback outside zone again, just because it's been a great play for us. And like I said, Alex was such a great runner. He was a huge weapon for us. So like I said at the end of that first quarter, and I told him I said this, I'm going to pretty much work the entire offense through him now, because the boys are going to respond to Alex. And I knew that, and that's kind of why I gave him that in-between quarter pep talk there, because right at the end of the first quarter after they had scored and made it 21-zip, I kind of gave him that pep talk on the sideline, because I knew the boys would respond to him, and I wasn't lying. Like, when I told him that everything's going to have to come through you and where you go is where we go, I wasn't lying. He's got to become the show for the next 3 quarters. So now this is one that we had talked about. This is the touchdown, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we had talked about this one at the start of this drive. When we met in the huddle, I pulled everyone in there, and I said, look, we need to get a couple plays in here. I said, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back to the 2x2 in. All right. And I told him, I said, you need to just give that in a little glance and maybe a little pump, and Duke is going to be wide open. And there it is. I mean, that's all it took. A little glance and a little pump, and they absolutely buy it, and touchdown. These are the little things in a game that I'm not going to try to toot my own horn here, but these are the little things in the game that I have improved on so much, and I've always had a little bit of a knack of seeing stuff like this, but these are the things in the game as a coordinator I've referenced before in some of the other games too, that you've got to be aware of what the stimulus is that you're providing, and what the response is from the other team. And if you can't do that, things like this don't happen. And I'm on the field, so it makes it a little bit more difficult, but I've always been on the field, and it's not about, how creative can my plays be. This, I think, is my personal advantage over people in a game, is that
I agree 100%.
I've been able to develop that I guess skill is I don't really know another word for it. I've been able to develop that skill over the years of, because our package is so overall tight and finely tuned on a weekly basis, that I know the stimulus that we're providing, and I am waiting for your response, and I know what I'm looking for, and I can see those things and capitalize on them. And this is just an example of that. I'm not trying to be a jerk or an egomaniac in that, but the simplicity of what we do helps significantly. But moments like this are, truthfully, they're life breathing for our offense here. We're back down 21 points again in the blink of an eye, and we come back and make it 14 again in the blink of an eye because of something that I caught, and let me go. And the overarching point of this, as you put the pieces of this series together like a puzzle, you've watched us in Michigan City, where I had multiple stimulus with multiple response pre-charted in that game. The bullets were in the chamber. It was just, when can I fire them and how many can I fire? And we're gonna light this scoreboard up. Well, we didn't, because we didn't execute. So at the end of the day, it always, 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 always comes down then to, what can your players execute? If Alex overthrows this ball, or if he doesn't pump it, or if he underthrows this ball, whatever it is, this play is worthless. It's not even worth talking about in this episode, and it never happens, and the Dragons are still down 21 points in this game. But Duke executes, Logan executes, the offensive line executes, Alex throws a beautiful ball, and we score, and it breathes life back into us. So at the end of the day, it always comes down to the players and their talent level, their execution level, their ability. And that's why we coach. We coach them to do these things. So it's not just a straight line of like, oh, yep, I'm a great play caller, great things happen. That's not true. It is a massive circle where everything has to flow together in that circle, or you're no good. That's the truth. As much as people would like to think it's because of their play calling, it really isn't.
Well, and the other thing too.
Oh yeah, I cut it off. You were going to say something there, but I cut it
Yeah,
off.
the other thing too is, you talk about all that, but like I said, at the end of the day, if you miss Duke running by on that in route, which isn't our primary read on that play, if you as a coordinator don't see that, that's, we've got to work a lot harder for those 7 points, and we may not get them. So those, and you said it, I think that's a skill that you have really well, is and it actually kind of surprises me sometimes, especially in those situations when we come out and they're playing a totally different defense than what we expected. And, I think you process that information so quickly, and you've already got the problem solved, while I'm sitting there next to you still trying to figure out what the problem actually is. And you've already kind of got that whole plane figured out in your mind. I agree with you that that's a skill that you really have. I'll tell you what, this won't break our feet down right here, and this is what kills you.
God.
That's what kills you, because that's really the only guy we got left.
Pick your poison.
Mm-hmm.
We are at such God. Even going back and watching this, the athletic disadvantage that we had in this game. That was a young Jordan Shanahan that was really just cutting his teeth even playing football. God, he was young and inexperienced, and I'm pretty sure that's Jordan.
Yep. Let me go back.
It looks like him. I'm pretty sure it's him. So I think he came to us as a sophomore and then wasn't able to play the first part of the year. And, man, he's just learning the game of football and just was an unbelievable effort kid. But tackling old Mac Hippenhammer in space, that was not going to go well for us.
Well, Logan kind of gets caught watching the paint dry here.
You know, the coverage on this, again, is not bad. He just gets run right by. I mean, the hard part about this, too, is it's a one-man route. He does pretty well on the stutter. He gets his feet broken down a little bit too much right here, and then he just runs right by him. This is the hard part. This is only going to one player. I mean, the other guys aren't even doing – look at the guys at the bottom of the screen. They're not even doing anything. This is a one-man route, and they did this a lot, by the way. It is going to be, here's our kid going to Penn State against your corner that is not going to Penn State, and we're going to run right by you. That's it. It's that simple. I mean, there's nothing to it. They've done this to people all year long, and he just flat out outruns us. I mean, there's nothing else to it.
Yep.
There's nothing more to say. It's not bad coverage. He breaks his feet down just a bit too much right there and sticks his eyes in the backfield just a hair too long. That's all they need. You know, a normal receiver, we're probably okay on this route. Against him, well, that's what happens. So we're back down 21 again. Immediately. I mean, literally immediately, we're back down 21.
So 35-14 now.
Here's the thing. You've asked this question, and even in the moment and now, my answer is still the same. I felt like we could score as many points as time allowed, essentially. You know, we fumbled the ball twice early. But going into the game, during the game, after the game, 4 or 5 years later, our defense couldn't stop these guys. I mean, they really couldn't. The only way that we could have stopped these guys is if we played them outdoors in the rain. That really would have been.
They've had 5 drives and scored 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's really not going to change much, honestly. So we come back and start plugging away. You asked this yesterday as well. I'm going to tell you right now, I know that this seems like a really simple statement here, but here was the most – I know you're going to probably ask this a little bit later on as well because you've asked me this personally at some point in our friendship and coaching relationship as well. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's not even halftime yet, and I'm starting to feel kind of the drain of a game where the roller coaster that we have already been on, which is a side note, is not even – it seems like a kiddie ride compared to the roller coaster we're about to be on. But the ups and downs of this game and trying to keep my poise and control, it was tough. I mean, it was really hard. I know you're going to ask that question, I'm sure, at some point. Yeah. So I'll save a lot of that for later. But that is a really underestimated part of coaching that, you said I think the standard fan doesn't understand. There's going to be a day in my time where I am going to enjoy more than I can even say going and sitting up in the stands and just watching a football game be played. There's going to be a time in my future where I'm going to absolutely love every single second of that because it is stressful being down there and going through stuff like this. It's really hard. I mean, mentally, physically, emotionally, it is really difficult to coach this sport with as much as we all put into this. And your average fan loves to sit up there and yell and scream and be upset and want to fire coaches, and they want to blame players and all this, that, and the other. But when you're down there and you're in the hot seat, it's a totally different experience. And I love the game of football. I love coaching it. I love my kids. I love working with my kids. But I love the game for what it's about. And there's going to be a day where I'm going to enjoy watching this sport be played and have no attachment, and as a fan of this game, while it's probably frustrating for a lot of Dragon fans and stuff, this is a game where I would have loved to have just been sitting in a seat and watch this game for the really the beauty of it. I know that sounds absurd because we aren't playing defense right now at all, but for what this game becomes, I would have paid top dollar to be a fan in the stands and just watch the show these two teams put on. It's different when I have the headset on my head, though. I'm not enjoying a lot right now.
Yeah, I obviously this is that taken to the 10th degree, but even some of the others over the years.
Sure.
I mean, Cathedral this year was that way. Whiteland this year was that way. The second half of the Valparaiso game was that way. I mean, both years of Center Grove. Don't get me wrong, happy to beat Center Grove both those years. Michigan City, I mean, just because of how that game went. But you walk off the field and you're happy and all that stuff, but you're also just, I mean, you are just drained. You are just physically exhausted. Like you almost feel like you played.
Yeah.
And like your brain is just mush from all the information processing that happens. And it's like that to a lesser degree in some of those games where we really pile points on people, but it still happens. But I mean, I think the Valparaiso game this year is kind of the key example of that, and what happened in that second half. And we got to the big lead, and then they come storming back, and we get to a point where we better get a first down, and we're going to lose a football game. It is trying and taxing, and I agree with your assessment 100%. There's going to be a day down the road where Friday night's going to be really enjoyable to be a third party and not be, not have basically be at the controls of a runaway train. I mean, because that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
I mean? The train is going regardless of whether you are ready for it to go or not. And it's going to go where it wants to go, and you just have to hold on for the ride.
Yep.
So this is really bad field position here.
Yeah, not good.
After the penalty, you get about 4 there. Come back, try to run bubble. Not a great throw. So staring down the barrel of 3rd and 7 here.
Yeah, this was more of a let's give us a little bit of room to punt, because like the last one we just about got blocked. So I tried to run that one and see if we could sneak a first down up, because they loosened up loosened up on those 3rd and longs, and we, again, we're not running the ball well, period. Unless it's Alex running it, we're not running the ball very well. So I'll get this one blocked too.
Nice punt though.
Yeah, Nick hammers this one.
So I assume, got to not feel great punting that away down 21.
Well, we don't have a choice. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're going to score anyway, so I guess I could have just given the ball there. But, giving them the ball inside of our 20-yard line, I mean, they're going to score 100% of the time, essentially. And, you're going to play
nice play by here by Brady Walden. An uncharacteristically poor throw by this quarterback, to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, they've got this thing.
They've got us over the top on this one again. He just underthrows this ball.
That ball's here. We're hosed.
This was kind of what I really – well, what am I going to say to criticize their offense? They're absolutely ripping us to shreds right now. But this was one of the things I was really surprised by, that I kept warning the kids at every break. They have not truthfully tried to go over our heads yet with this big kid. The kid at the bottom of the screen, I mean, you can tell, look at him and Brady. I mean, Brady looks like his kid brother. This kid was 6'4" and like 190 something pounds. And okay. So to give you a little bit of what we're dealing with here, Brady is a sub 1100 meter kid. Okay. In this year, by the way, like as a junior, and then as a senior, he's going to be a sub 1100 meter kid for us. And this kid creates distance. I mean, I really think about that. Like, Brady was the fastest player in the program, and this guy runs by him. To complicate that even further, that kid's 6'4" and Brady is 5'9" or 10. You know, he's giving up half a foot. He's giving up probably 40 pounds, and he's giving up speed. And that, by the way, is their number 2 receiver. He's the second best. He's not even the guy. Yeah, he's not even the guy. And you might even argue their slot is better than the tall kid, because their slot was this quick, shifty little dude that could just do everything. I mean, that kid's 2 or 3, and that's what we're looking at. I mean, it was an incredible play by Brady. I mean, it really was. To not give up on that, to recover, bail, open, refit, play the ball at its high point. We get a little bit of an underthrow, and he gets it. Spectacular play. But we were beat again.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because of bad technique or any of those things. But, you know, do you stay super, super, super far away from them and let them rip you apart with the bench routes they've been running and get 10 to 12 whenever they want it? Or do you make them throw higher risk balls down the field by staying closer, and maybe they complete them or they don't? I mean, there were no good answers to the problems that they provided us. Here's another motion, little one-man route. So same thing that we've been gathering here as we go along. You see what they do on this one, okay? They roll over, and they're going to try to press this over to kind of their man, and then they leave this guy by himself again, one-on-one. We've seen them do it twice. We come right back with an answer and hit a cheap little, 8-yard hitch route on the backside because they're leaving that kid alone. That's kind of the story I was telling earlier. Those things are going to provide us with some winning scenarios if you appropriately diagnose them and get yourself into some good plays. I actually think Alex was hesitant to pull this ball because he'd fumbled it. He should have pulled this. He's a little bit gun shy because he fumbled that exact same play in the first quarter. Here's another motion. We're going to come back now. I think we get hit on this one.
Hitch and go down here.
Yeah, he gets hit as he throws this. This ball's supposed to go to Duke, and it's probably a touchdown because Duke wins on this route. Same thing. You see what they've done now. Okay, now they change it to a different coverage, and it kills them, and they don't really know what they're doing. They got guys covering all over the place right now. So we come out, we run a kind of a bubble post here and come after the middle of the field, and Duke won. That right there is a win. All Alex has to do is throw the ball right to where you just pointed on that screen, and this is another touchdown, but he gets hit because we come off of a block. He gets hit as he throws, and we don't get it.
Nice run here by Nick.
Yeah.
It's an inside zone. We'll block it wrong again.
Yeah, we still got guys hanging on people and whatnot. We're going to throw that RPO here in a little while. This one is inexplicable. I have no idea. Again, I take a lot of blame for this because we just man, we just don't look prepared. I mean, this is essentially supposed to just be hitch, and our guys don't even turn around. I have no idea what we're doing here.
They're blocking.
Yeah. This is oh, I know what this was. Yeah, here's your good and your bad to RPOs. They don't do the route. They go block. I remember what this was. Yeah, they didn't they took the run signal and didn't get the actual option part of it, and they actually just went and blocked. Another good hard run by Nick with not much to do in the middle.
Quarterback zone. Going to get down here close. It's going to be about 4th and 4.
Yeah, it's another good hard run, but we're just not getting much out of the middle of our offensive line against their defense here. I mean, it's 3 and 4 yards is normally pretty good, but it's not right now against these guys.
Boy, no brainer to go for it, and you don't get it.
Yeah. In hindsight, probably should have run the ball to the outside or thrown it with the way that we're blocking against these big guys currently. But, I mean, they just stand us right up. There's no push. Linebacker comes in scot-free. Yeah,
I blocked this one wrong as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're playing really bad up front, just really bad in a couple of spots, and it's killing us. It's a really nice job by Crumlin on this play to get out this kind of hook curl and actually get underneath this route, this little whip route. Really good play by him. Crumlin James was one of those guys too that I was super, super proud of. He had been a backup and a JV guy and a scout team guy, all those things for so long, and really bought in, had a tremendous offseason going into his senior year. And, man, he's one of those guys I kind of call it like the senior miracle where everything just clicks for him. And he's a kid that had played for us, and man, you're just kind of hoping, like, I hope all this comes together. And he had it started to mean something to him. Those seniors that get a little taste of playing, you talk to them the off season, like, hey man, you've got the talent, you've got the ability, but maybe it's not there in the weight room. Maybe it's not there in your commitment level. Maybe it's whatever it is. And all of a sudden they realize, like, you know what? I've gone through essentially 3+ years of this, and I haven't done anything that I'm tremendously proud of that matches the effort that I'm required to put in. And I'm not going to go through my high school career having wasted a golden opportunity to play. And they start to realize that last year comes along, their time is coming to an end. And I kind of call it the senior miracle. And every year we have a couple of those kids that are just right on that fence. And it starts to mean just a little bit more. And every year we get about 1 or 2 that really then come up out of nowhere and are just such a pleasant surprise. And you knew that they always had it in them. It was just going to be whether or not that switch flipped. And Crumlin was one of those guys where it happened for him. And God, he had a great senior year. I mean, he was so good for us. It's just one of those great stories again where we get a guy that really, he comes out of nowhere. He'd been a program kid. He special teams, JV, scout team, the whole deal. Always a tough kid, really a tough kid, but had just, never really put his mind into it to try to be the best he could be. And all of a sudden, man, he started to figure it out. And, well, that offseason going into his senior year, he was spectacular and had a great season. I mean, he got paid for that. He ended up being an all-conference player, I'm pretty sure.
Here's a counter again, and you can see it again here where those guys are deep and these guys are up tight.
Yeah, we're just not. I mean, we're not paying attention.
Well, you paid James a compliment there, and then he drops the hook curl when his two linemen go away.
Yeah. I just we're not paying attention at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what I said yesterday. We're reeling on defense right now, and we're not getting good answers to problems on that side of the ball, and it's making things worse because they're so far ahead of us right now in that respect, and it's not going to get well. I was literally getting ready to say, it's not going to get much better. Here we go again. How about this throw? This is Gunner. This is Gunner as a sophomore that gets beat on this one, and again, what are you supposed to do? That's what we had. I'm trying to keep guys fresh, and they run, literally right by us. And that guy throws the ball on a sprint out on the money to that slot receiver that went and played D2 ball. What a throw. For God's sakes, man.
So 42-14.
Yep. And then Nick gets hurt. How about that ball?
Oh boy.
That's where Nick gets hurt. How about that ball? The things that are going, they're really good. But some of the things like the kickoff we watched earlier, this one right here that go their way. This ball is honest to God a millimeter from the sideline. Watch this ball. Bounces out and then in, and then noses up, inbounds again, and then Nick gets hurt right here. He gets a hit pointer. I didn't know that at the time, but that's what happened. I'll explain that later here in a minute. You can see Adams in the game now. Nick gets hurt right there.
Come right back to this.
Literally the same play. Look, it's not hard. And I'm not joking when I talk about all the things I talk about. This is the same play that we just ran earlier that was open for a touchdown that we come right back with again with the same motion just from a different part of the field, and we hit it. We just block. Well, the linemen just block, and we don't get sacked and hit. It's not hard. The plan for this game was not hard. We were going to come after their lack of discipline, and that was really it. That was the same play. Another really good scramble pitch and catch here after we get some pressure. We just get beat really bad at left tackle again here. Just immediately beat. Alex does a good job moving.
We're starting empty here.
Yeah, we're starting to run out of time, so we get into empty. I find out that Nick can't come back in right now, so Adam had played a lot of receiver anyway, so we just get into empty. We once again don't block at left tackle and get a ton of pressure. That forces a really bad throw. We're struggling right now. We're not run blocking well, and we're not pass blocking well at all, and That's never a good combination when neither of the two blocking schemes are going well for you. We had run a pretty good amount of empty in this season, though, because of Alex's ability to throw the ball and our receivers' talent.
Out.
Yep, out route to the sideline here, trying to eat up some clock.
Same play.
Yeah, this one we just kind of pump it. They don't bite on it. So Alex does a really good job of coming back and calming down and throwing the out route again. He throws an absolute missile here. We wanted that to Logan, but they get over the top, and then he comes back and throws a really nice ball to Duke to keep moving the chains. Sprint out play. This was our smash on a sprint out. We're going to hit this later in the game. Really good job again by these guys. That's a great throw and a good route. This is going to be a good play for us this game with the coverage they play here. The man-to-man aspect of this, the 3-by-1, that press corner, this little speed out route is going to drag him away and really open up this window for that corner route. Joe runs a great route right here, by the way, especially for a bigger guy. That little foot, head, shoulder stick he does to then break that route outside is really nice by him. Joe was a great route runner, too. He's obviously a heck of a linebacker, but he never got credit for the quality of receiver he was. He was a really good receiver for us, too, and he was about 205 pounds or so. So he was pretty big. We don't block
probably
again.
got it to him right here as well.
Yeah. Well, we don't block again. We get a guy right in our face immediately. We get beat up front right out of the gate, so we don't get a clear picture, and we get another. I mean, he's just got to throw. He's got to pretty much just sail this ball. When we literally get beat right out of the gate. There it is right there. I mean, you can't – what are you supposed to do? How are you going to throw a ball with that huge dude right in your face?
And there we go again.
Yeah, we're getting hit and pressured again now on this one. Just off the fingertips here. This is one of those moments right now, too, where the stress level is at an all-time high because you're down 28. There's no time left, really. 3 is not good enough. I mean, 3 is not acceptable here at this point. We got to get 7, and we're not blocking, and we're in a squeezed scenario here where you don't have a lot of real estate to run 4 routes anyway, and you got 2 downs to do it. I'm not feeling great. I mean, we've got some calls for this scenario, but man, for what all this means, this is tough. And what a throw, by the way. Holy cow.
There's about a 6-inch window for him to throw this ball in successfully, and I mean he puts it right on the money.
Yeah, this is just a
Ball
great.
Has to be in front of him and down.
Yep, it's got to be in front and low, and he throws it. I mean, go back to when you think. Look, he's got a guy. I mean, again, immediately. This time it's our running back that screws up. He's got a guy immediately in his face and just throws a – I mean, I said this yesterday. I challenge you to find 3/4 of better football than what that kid plays right here. When you take everything into consideration, it's not possible. It's absolutely not possible. The pressure, honestly, the lack of blocking that's happening right now, the scenario, the situation – the quality of throws he's making, the mental side of things that he's got to go through and process. It's the best 3/4 of football that I've ever seen somebody play.
Well,
and we just lost Nick.
Yeah. So 42-21 at the half, and let's start tomorrow with the locker room stuff, and I mean, I don't know how many adjustments there really can be. I mean, you're moving the ball and defensively, I mean, unless you got the Space Jam Monstars down there in the locker room waiting to put on red jerseys, there's not a lot defensively that really can be done, I don't believe. So we'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow and some of the adjustments. But my question before we go is, you're down 21, you battled and battled and battled to get back to down 21. And I mean, they scored on 6 of 7 possessions there, and the other was an interception. So, I mean, how do you feel? I mean, bad. Let's start there. We know bad, but
yeah.
I mean, in terms of the second half, I know this is kind of a hectic situation because you got to do the TV and you got to do the radio and people are grabbing you and want to talk to you and you've really only got that walk to the locker room, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to really think and kind of what's going through your mind there as you get ready to head back there to talk to the coaches and then talk to the kids.
Well, if you've seen that recent video that came out. Saw it on Twitter yesterday of Mike Tyson training again now. If you've seen that video where he's sparring, I felt a little bit like that guy that he was sparring with, but I didn't have pads on. Felt a little bit like that. Felt a little bit like old Mike Tyson had just gone ahead and used me as a punching bag. Truth is, sometimes in life you get speed bagged, and that's kind of what I felt like. I mean, it just felt like a a flurry of punches coming from every different angle. And you didn't know where the next one was going to come from, and you didn't know how to stop it, block it, and defend it. And you were just taking punishment. To use a non-sports analogy, it was pretty much like water going through a sieve that you're trying to fix. There's so many holes to plug up that you got to look around and decide, okay, which hole is allowing the most water out right now? Where is the biggest leak coming from in this, and how do we plug it? And then we'll deal with the other stuff as we can go. Again, it's bad to say that, but when you get in that situation, I know what that's like, because I've been in that as a player. I've been in that as a coach. Our team has done that to other teams before. You see them start doing all kinds of stuff to fix problems they've got. I get it. I know what it feels like. I know how hard that is. It's not an easy thing to do and to manage. So I feel really bad. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I just, the halftime interview, I still remember to this day. I didn't want to be there. I didn't care to be there. My mind was totally on having to fix all the problems that we had not solved yet. And, the guy really kind of asked me a little bit of the same thing you just asked me, to be honest. And he also asked, how important is that touchdown at the end of the half? And it's like, I pretty much told him, well, really important, because we're down 28 instead of 21 if we don't score there. And I actually said something effective like, three touchdowns is manageable. And I thought that in my head. The interesting part about that interview is I was so preoccupied with fixing problems that they didn't get like a fluff interview, we're like, oh yeah, we're playing good ball. And they got what was in my head. And I still remember that interview, because that interview was like my own personal time to verbalize the things that were in my head. So I had said that because I 21 was just important to me for a couple of reasons. As that half finally closed, and I had about a minute and a half or 2 minute window before that interview, we had essentially played them to an even tie in the second quarter, which was probably a little bit better than I thought was going to happen, but we hadn't made our situation worse, and that was important. Two, I'll get more into this, but 21 to me was still reasonable. I'll get more into that tomorrow, but 21 to me was still reasonable. The other thing he had asked me essentially was kind of what you just asked, was really, what my thoughts were on the half. And I mean, I was brutally honest. It was my fault. I mean, I took total blame for it at the halftime on the camera. I mean, you're sitting there broadcasting that to God knows how many thousands of people. And, I tell this to the kids all the time. This is something that our program is one of the things, but I'm not a finger pointer. And I wasn't raised that way by my parents, and I'm not that way as a person. We talk to our kids all the time about pulling the thumb back at yourself. And I was really mad and upset because I really just felt like, and I was very honest in that interview, I really just felt like I let everybody down, because I just felt like it was as poorly prepared as we have ever been. And it's on the biggest stage. We are doing so many things wrong. And that's my fault. And there's probably some more backstory that goes into a lot of that, but it's my fault. At the end of the day, it's my fault. We weren't prepared to play for a lot of different scenarios and things, and I took total blame for that on the camera. And I still believe that to this day. There are a lot of things that throughout this game and this season and everything that I probably wish I would have done differently. And the truth of it was, in that interview, in that moment, a lot of those things had poured back to me, and I just took total blame for it. It wasn't about the 24 minutes of football that have been played. There was a lot more. a lot more that had honestly contributed to it than that. And, like I said, I'm constantly learning, and I learned a lot from this season in general and how I wanted to move forward as a head coach. I'm only in year 3 right now. I'm still figuring a lot of stuff out as this evolves. And there were a lot of things I learned from 2015, despite the fact we were really good. So I think in that moment, I was really upset because I felt like I had really failed everybody, and I'd let everybody down, and we weren't prepared, and that was my fault. So that was hard for me to deal with mentally, to be honest. It was tough for me to even do that in that interview, but I think it allowed me to get that stuff out verbally and kind of regroup myself a little bit. And then, well, you've known me since this point. I think this was a big turning point for me in the larger picture of things, where I don't really know how to phrase this. I start to just become who I am at this point. And I don't know any other way to say that. It was my fault that we were in that position. It was my fault that it had gotten to that point. It was my fault that all of these things had happened. And I really just made the decision at this point in time that I'm never going to allow this to happen again. And it's probably one of the, probably one of the tougher half times I've had in that regard. And probably tough for some people as well. So I don't know. It was just not good. That's the truth. It just wasn't good, and things needed to change. So we come in, we're going to make some changes and play potentially the greatest second half of football that anybody's ever seen in this state. Not that anything I did had anything to do with that, so to speak. It all comes back to the fact that our kids literally just pour their hearts out, and it's pretty special to watch. So, yeah, it was tough halftime. Really a hard moment for me as a coach. Truthfully, you like to think it's all wonderful, and it's what do you guys got to complain about? My records, I don't know. We've only lost 4 games. I know that. So you think like, well, what is there to really be, concerned about or upset about, or how? I mean, it's hard. It's hard to deal with them. It's hard to sit there and like I said, just take that on the chin and know that I've created this mess. And it all comes back to me. I'm not going to sit there and blame the kids. They're playing their butts off, and they're making mistakes, but they're high school players. They're not professionals. So, yeah, a really tough halftime. And like you said, what makes it harder is, and what made it hard on me is the the window that you get to do all that, and that's kind of goes back to the mental side of the toll that this game is going to take. All that happens in 15 minutes, and you've been a part of 2 of these games now with us. Halftime is a frenzy. I mean, it is a feeding frenzy of feeding information, mentally checking up on your players, answering their questions, etc. We've got multiple injuries that I need to attend to, which I'll talk about tomorrow. It's hard. It's really hard. And I think that's a really underestimated part of this game. It's not let's walk off the field and go back into our own little locker room here and
Right.
We've got a band performance. So it's a 17 or a 20-minute halftime, and you get your 3 minutes when you come out too on top of it. It isn't that. It is you leave, you have a long walk back, you're in the tunnel, you're in the bowels of the stadium, you get in the locker room, then you get 15. And then it's a long walk back out, and we're rocking and rolling after your little 2-minute, 3-minute warm-up deal. So,
and I think an underrated and not well thought of thing to go with that is you're in a strange place, you're in a strange locker room, you don't really know where anybody is. And I went through that in 2019 in the Valpo game, because there was stuff that I wanted to talk to you about, and I could not find you.
Yeah.
You know, you were doing TV. You know, I always like to come back, and as I'm walking off the field with 2 or 3 of the other offense coaches, you know, we're talking already as we're going to the locker room, but you'd stayed for TV. I couldn't find you. I'm trying to find Jeremy, Coach Large, our pass game coordinator and our quarterback coach. I'm trying, you know, he's coming down from the box. I've got to find him. I'll go in the locker room, and when you go into our locker room at our place, you know, all the kids usually sit in they've got their locker, and you know where to find them, but you're in this weird shaped locker room, and you can't find this kid, you can't find that kid, and the clock's running, and I'm trying to, you know, go in there and try to grab Brody or try to grab Hook and talk about this route or talk about this thing, and can't find him. Come back out looking for you, still can't find you. Go back in, find another kid. Okay, here's Jeremy. Grab Jeremy, talk to Jeremy. 2 minutes, still can't find you. We're 9 minutes to go. Need to talk to you. You know, clock's still running. All these, and finally we get the offense coaches together with like 9 minutes to go. We have our conversation. You go in, talk to the kids, make those adjustments. I still need to talk to you. There's 3 minutes to go. We're getting ready to come back out. I finally have an opportunity to literally pull you by the sleeve and have that 30-second conversation. Yeah. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. That's exactly how that went in the halftime of that Valparaiso game. And I don't have a chance. I don't have a chance to talk to you. You know, and we're talking about making a quarterback change, and we're talking about all this important stuff. And I literally had 30 seconds to grab you to have that conversation with you with like 3 minutes to go in the half before we go back out. So, and that's, you know, that's in a quote unquote normal half when we go in 10-10 and things are, I won't say all is well, but you know, we're, you know what I mean? But like, it's a quote unquote normal half of football, and not we're down 3 scores, you know, everything's going horribly. I can't imagine just the frenzy and how hectic that was in that limited compressed time in a strange space. That just stresses me out thinking about it because of how much of a challenge that part is and how short the time is.
Yeah, it is difficult. And I mean, that's a true story. I remember you grabbing my sleeve and like, hey, I need to talk to you. I'm like, okay, what, you know, what? It's tough. Because when you come back out too, you lose me again because I have to do the other half of the interview, you know? So I don't, I'm inaccessible really until the headset goes back on, honestly. And it almost, because the other thing too that is hard about this is the police escort me. So I'm separated a lot of the time. And that's another part of the adjustment to this, that first year against New Prairie, thankfully we were up by a lot. So I got to see the routine of all that. But yeah, this year was a feeding frenzy, and every year's a little bit different, but yeah, the police, they pull me away from the group. So I'm not even with the players and the coaches at the start or the end of the half. And so I got to have you guys run that show. And it is hard. It really is. It's a difficult piece to all this that unless you've been down there, you don't really understand. And like I said, there will be some day where I will just be in the hot dog line at the concession stands getting a hot dog and a bottle of water and talking to some other random fan about, oh, man, that coach should have done this or he should have done that, or, oh, you know, that'll be me. And I'll be enjoying every single second of that. But halftimes like this, boy, it's tough. It is definitely tough and something that your average fan, they just don't get, you know, and it is what makes what we do special. And it also is what makes it really hard to do. So yeah, a lot to do at halftime here, a lot to talk about. We'll fire it up, I guess, tomorrow. And I mean, it's going to be a big chunk here because this halftime stuff is
important and a lot.
Yeah, it's extreme. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we'll pick it up here tomorrow.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely.